What's up, Mothership Marauders? I'm Quacker's Coat, and this is the fish fry for November 27th, being held at Sockeye Station. Our cookware for this rotation is the NZAP, the Sloshing Machine, the H-3 Nozzlenose, and the Hydra Splatling. This composition has some incredible range to it, but we still need to remember that we need to lure easy splat bosses to the basket. And this composition has some really good paintability to it as well. So one really helpful thing that you can do is to get all the way to the shoreline right at the beginning, paint as much of that tower as possible, especially with that Hydra. Get it all the way charged up and start painting that map. The Hydra is also a large portion of our damage output, so if that Hydra is not getting themselves fully charged up and dealing that damage at range, it might be easy to get overrun, or just not have enough eggs to clear the wave. So there won't be too much of a reason to get down there to the shoreline as long as that damage is being output. And on a high tide, things might get a little bit more frantic. But as long as everybody is trying to use their mobility whilst also dealing damage, it should be a little bit easier to get it clear on a high tide. That Hydra still needs to stay on that tower and get themselves fully charged up. It might be a little bit hard to stay up there, but make sure you remember to use some wall hangs. They're helpful for just getting a little bit of extra ink back. On a low tide, the Hydra is also one of our best tools. Don't forget to use the sides in order to take out fly fish and stingers. But don't get too far away from the basket. That spot right in the center of the map on a low tide is also a fantastic place for the Hydra to take out some of those priority targets. No matter where that big shot is, that fully charged Hydra will be able to take him out. Just like every composition that has a Hydra, it becomes a little bit crazy on a glowflies. Try to get that Hydra completely charged up, that way you can take out the horde before it gets to the damage line. The NZAP and the H-3 can do a pretty good job at holding that line, but it will be helpful to cause some kind of damage to that Goldie before it gets there. The Sloshing Machine can have an interesting ability to it. Its shot has a radius of attack as it's flying through the air. If you can get that radius to cause some damage to lessers before it makes contact with something, you can have some extra damage output with this weapon. Just make sure you're really careful about when you break away from combat to put in those eggs. Most of the same things can be said for a Griller's Wave. That NZAP definitely does still need to be on lesser control, and that Hydra, once fully charged up, has enough charge to take out a Griller and take out some of those small fry before you hop down and get some of those eggs. On a Quahog charge, it's pretty obvious that the Hydra needs to be in the turret, and as long as someone else is in a turret, it should be pretty easy to take out some of those priority targets and to keep the Quahogs at bay. On a Mothership and a Mudmouth, this range also helps really well on taking out some of those lessers and taking out some of those boxes. Just make sure you keep that Hydra right there in the center of the map, keeping it fully charged up to utilize its full range. Especially when that Mothership's heading in, it can cause some maximum damage to it. On a Mudmouth wave, hopefully everybody's focusing on tossing bombs, that way you can just keep that Hydra charged up, clearing out lessers whenever they show up. On a Goldie Seek on Sockeye Station, try to make sure that whenever the Goldie is popped out, that you don't get in everybody's way, especially with the Hydra in play. It's really easy to just block someone's damage output and not get as many eggs as you possibly could have. And don't forget a Goldie Seek here at Sockeye Station. If the 3 valves down there by the shoreline are short, then it'll be the one by the basket. And on a high tide, if any of the ones around the basket are short, then it'll be the one by the double platform. On a Giant Tornado, since we don't have any really good large horde control weapons, keep in mind that when you're in the middle of the map, it's really easy to get surrounded and get splat. So once they start dropping, try to get some distance between you and them and start to deal some damage. This is a pretty difficult composition for a Sockeye Station, but as long as that damage is being dealt, we should find it pretty easy to get it clear. I mean, it's Sockeye Station, everybody. Alright, let's get into the cookware. Our first cooking utensil is the NZAP. The NZAP has the best coverage in the kit on the wall and on the turf. And just like the Splash-O-Matic, its downfall is its range. So if you're focusing on a fish stick, either climb it or try to get a little bit of height on it. This weapon can do a pretty good job at pushing towards stingers on the shoreline, but its damage output is just low enough that you don't want to stay there. Get yourself back up and get those eggs to the basket. Our second cooking utensil is the Sloshing Machine. As mentioned before, the Sloshing Machine shot has a little bit of a radius of attack around the blast as it's flying through the air. As it falls, that attack can actually take out multiple buckets of a stinger, as long as you hit a pot so that some of the radius of that attack hits the smaller pot above it. The Sloshing Machine also does a great job at painting mid-walls, so it might be better to start on the left side of the map right at the beginning of the wave. To make this weapon the most useful, try to keep your aim on point. It can easily take out stillheads on one cycle, and take out drizzler balloons in one shot. And just like with most of the sloshing weapons, when you're dealing with a fish stick, try to aim on the right side of the rotation, leaving more enemies in your reticle for a longer amount of time. So try to use the range of this weapon on taking out lessers and taking out bosses. Our third cooking utensil is the H-3 Nozzlenose. With the H-3's range and damage output, try to keep your aim on point with this weapon. It can be a fantastic boss slaying tool, and it can be incredible at taking out Quahawks. As long as you don't get too much tunnel vision with this weapon, you can cause some really good damage all across the map. And if you're dealing with a fish stick, just like the sloshing machine, try to aim on the right side of the rotation. That way those enemies stay just a little bit longer in that reticle. If you get yourself going down to the level of the Salmonids, keep in mind this weapon has a slower fire rate than the L3, so you can't play it too aggressively. Try to get in, get those shots to hit, grab an egg, and then get yourself back out. Though this weapon would be best to be played defensively, keeping yourself on a higher platform, and dealing that damage and supporting your teammates. Our last cooking utensil is the Hydra Splatling. It takes a while to get the Hydra fully charged up, but once it's fully charged up, its range maximizes, and you get a little bit of extra damage for each hit. Not to mention how well this weapon does at painting everything on this map. The only thing that's required in order to make this weapon work is getting it to a full charge. Once it's at a full charge and you're on top of the tower, you can reach just about anywhere on the shoreline, making this weapon fantastic for big shot control, stinger control, and fish stick control. But try not to get too much tunnel vision. This weapon also does a fantastic job at protecting the basket. To keep yourself there on the tower, it'll be helpful to have as much painted as possible. That way you can hop off the side, get your ink bag, especially in case a Moz shows up. This weapon has so much power, it can easily take out a flipper flopper in one jump. So keep it up there on the tower and see what your teammates are getting into. And once they notice you're up there, hopefully they'll start tossing some eggs up to you too. On an extra wave, the Hydra also truly shines. With that increased damage output on a full charge, try to keep your aim glued to him. With that and the N-Zap, you can cause some constant damage output to the Kohozuna. And with the range that we have, it'll be easy to break away from combat and take out some of those bosses. The H-3 and the Sloshing machine can do a fantastic job at weakening some hordes and taking out those bosses, spawning those golden eggs. And as always, look for that moment right at the beginning of the extra wave, where you can use your special to not just cause some damage to the Kohozuna, but to also take out some bosses, spawning some golden eggs early on in the wave. And the fish fry usually comes out before the stage rotation, so if you want to catch these updates when they're hot and fresh, make sure you subscribe and hit that bell. And if you want other fellow Grizzco employees to receive these tips, make sure you like and share the video. Bye-bye. If you want to give the fish fry an algorithm boost, just comment what your favorite or least favorite weapon is of this composition. My favorite is going to have to be the N-Zap, but I think that's just because I'm an old Nintendo nerd. Alrighty, bye-bye everybody.